Evgeny.
Hey, doesn't quite work correctly, but okay.
Okay, some people are coming in.
Can you actually hear me?
Yeah, I can. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I'm just surprised I don't get feedback, but okay.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Adrian Mihalțianu, editorial director at Press One. I will be moderating these Q&A sessions. You can use the Q&A tab or the chat tab to actually ask questions. And I really hope you will have a lot of questions because that's all about this session. So first of all, until some questions will pop in on the Q&A tab, I would have some questions for you, Yevgeny, if it's okay. My first would be, Bolt is taking the multi-vertical approach right now, instead on focusing on a single product, and you showed us the thinking behind every new feature that you are developing. But how do you keep focus on your main mission when developing several products?
Well, in the end, it's down to two things: having a really good framework, not just how to do one product, but how to approach kind of every vertical, right? So and this is where the same framework is incredibly helpful, because even though we have multiple verticals, it's kind of the same strategy in the end, and the same fundamentals and the same framework in how we approach every product. And then the second thing is that it's just down to finding great people and enabling them, right? So we cannot do it if we wouldn't have great autonomous teams owning each of the verticals. So one of my tasks was actually to grow those teams. So they were initially reporting to me, and so I would think that our Bolt Food team, it's now 500 people probably, and again, the kind of the putting that team together is actually I don't know, at least half the job. And so of course we have an amazing vertical lead and other ones, but I was also helping as much as I could, as did others. So I would say it downs to the framework and the team. There's nothing really more to it.
So you also talk about having a startup mentality. How does this help choosing what vertical to develop? Do they compete between themselves, or what is the approach?
They don't compete, though. They can cannibalize each other, right? So both micromobility and Bolt Drive will definitely eat into the ride hailing, and that's okay, because if we wouldn't do that, somebody else would, right? So we kind of approach to it this way, that it's totally every business unit is every vertical is its own separate thing, but in the end we're one company, and this is very important. The mentality is that that it's totally okay for us to compete somewhat, because if we wouldn't do that, basically it's the value proposition that micromobility offers is better, then it doesn't matter if we will do it or somebody else. Like ride hailing will anyway lose it, so just as well we win it, right? That we offer that better value proposition, not somebody else, and or experience or whatever. So that would say the approach.
But if they have an entrepreneurial spirit, how do you make sure that they don't actually go and make their own thing? How do you balance that, especially as you coordinate these teams?
Well, I mean, it depends. First of all, people are different, and these people, of course, all entrepreneurial, but we give them, it's the same reason why I'm here, right? Because I'm also an entrepreneur. I build my own tech company and so on. But Bolt gives us access to amazing scale, great team, really good infrastructure, funding and so on. So there's kind of, if you're driven by impact and you really want to build things, then it's a great environment to build things in, right? And you on your own, sure, you kind of, maybe you don't have a boss, and maybe you kind of have bigger piece of the pie if you do win, but also you take a massive amount of risk, and not just. And I think one thing, people overly focus on kind of financial risk, but for me as a professional and for others, it's also just wasting time risk, right? we have limited amount of time on this planet, and I personally want to spend it doing something fun and amazing. So if I don't have like high confidence that I don't know, on my own I'll do better, then like it's not a problem for me to have a boss, especially considering my boss is pretty awesome. So
one question from the public, from Daniel Patek. Many new players are currently entering the 10-minute grocery delivery. What is Bolt's advantage in this battle? How do you see this market developing in the future?
Well, there's a two kind of parts how I would answer this question. One is that it's kind of the same advantage as we have in ride-hailing and in food delivery and in everything else. And this is that I would call it just operational excellence. That there's a lot of companies in this world who are good at technology. There's a lot of companies in this world who are good at operations. There's very, very, very few which are good at both. And I think Bolt, like kind of magic sauce, is really not so much that we have some kind of like, I don't know, magical abilities, but just that we're really consistently good at executing on both of those sides. We do the right trade-offs in technology, we do the right trade-offs in operations, and we are really good at kind of finding the 20% of that matters and does 80% of the work across the board, right? And this is how we have won previously, and this is how we won in new verticals as well. So we like every business kind of has to be on a standalone way competitive. But what I would say, on top of that, what we have now, thanks to all these efforts, thanks to like expanding in these multiple verticals, we also still now have like I would say an advantage that customers have one counterparty to work with, right? And so if they already ride with us, if they already rent cars from us, if they already order food from us, why wouldn't they also order? Why wouldn't we also order groceries from us? So it's just there's definitely a stickiness win that you get just because we are like a super app, right? While this was not like I call it like kind of the serendipitous win, because we were not building towards that. Naturally, we were building every vertical as its own standalone business, and we still do approach them, but still, that there is that serendipity. It has become easier for us than for others, and of course, as entrepreneur, will take any advantage that is given to me.
By the way, Samota Ideyamo, sorry if I didn't read the name right. If a startup wants to partner with Bolt Food, who can they email? It's a question.
It's a tough one. Depends is it local partnership? Is it global? It's like we have 500 people in Bolt Food, so one of those. Yeah.
So most likely local.
Well, is there either country manager if it's a local partnership, or somebody in central operations if it's a global partnership? So I think one of those two.
Yeah, you are also an entrepreneur. You're an investor. So my next questions will be on this side, because there are many people in the audience that want to understand what you are looking for when investing in a team of founders. What's the main thing that you are looking for in that team?
Yeah. So when I invest in a company, and I have done reviewed, I have done 15 investments in the last 3 years. And probably reviewed like at least 100, maybe even a couple of hundreds. When I look at like kind of what I'm looking for, then the team quality is definitely up there. I want people like kind of who I would get excited about, who are smart, who are passionate, who are very structured in their thinking and in their approach. Kind of the same requirements I have for hiring product managers. Honestly, I want to invest into people which would make great product managers, because the kind of the skill set overlap there is massive, and so that's on the team side. Of course, track record is great, like modern, like the typical kind of modern one founder, good working experience, and so on. And then I really care about the market. So I don't invest as much in products, but I invest in markets. There are certain markets that I'm already excited about. There are certain markets that, I want the market to be big. I want there to be room to grow. I want to understand like what kind of, if the market is kind of ready to be changed, or like comment. And I want to understand kind of what could be the value proposition, because very often actually the way I do help the teams that I invest to, I help them sometimes exactly break down the same fundamentals of their markets and help them understand like how to approach it and like what is the real value they can create, and usually they halfway there, but maybe I help them, saves them like some months and months of time because I've done it for like I don't know, 30, 40, 50, whatever.
Yeah.
Times.
From your experience, what is the most overlooked thing by entrepreneurs or early on in their journey? What they are missing?
That's a good question. What is the most overlooked? Well, one for example bias that I recently had to correct for is that they were overly focused on the soft value proposition and how it usually, for example, how I see it, they over automate. They like very commonly they focus on like, SaaS startup overly focus on self-service instead of hiring like, I don't know, 3 people to onboard customers. Because early on the self-service doesn't matter. If like you can have very and smooth ride as long as you create this hard value proposition, right? And so this kind of the focus is a problem. Usually this over automation is a problem. Then go-to-market is usually all over the place. Monetization, pricing, like I don't know. There's like it's not like everybody doesn't quite make the same mistakes. There's like a lot of it's a very complex thing, right? Building a company, there's so many facets that you need to get right, and there's so many opportunities to get it wrong. So people usually find interesting ways to get it right and interesting ways to get it wrong, and they're always kind of different.
But do they focus a lot on the product itself and its features instead of being very careful how they build their team? Because there are many who are starting with, okay, we have this wonderful idea, we have this wonderful MVP, but we didn't think through the whole business part of it. And how do you help them usually as you invest?
Well, again, it's all like situational, right? And sometimes, and people make mistakes even on that both ways, right? They either launch too raw product and like not enough features or like just the value proposition there, or they spend too much time and not enough time learning and too much time like iterating. So, so like in the end, just I kind of pattern match from experience, try to understand what is the actual value proposition which users care, what do they know about them already, like how which users have they talked, like which users have they talked to the right users, like and unfortunately I wish I could say, oh, here's a simple recipe how to do it, but actually there are simple recipes. Just my always joke is there's a very simple recipe how to build great companies. Unfortunately, to apply that simple recipe, you need 20 years of experience building great companies. So, yeah.
Another question from Daniel Patak. You once wrote that you asked job candidates to prepare a 4 to 8 hour homework before the job interview. What's the purpose?
Well, that's the purpose is to actually evaluate the candidate, and for us, homework I would say is 50% of evaluation. So like all the interviews is the other 50%, and during the interviews we'll have asked candidates to solve real-time tasks. So like about half of my interview is usually like a third to a half of my each interview is dedicated like, okay, here's the task, let's see how you solve it. Because seeing people problem solving is the most, I would say, revealing, both in real time and to give them also an opportunity to take time and think and so on. Because reality is that CVs are misleading. Interviews can be you can prep really well for an interview and still not be great in real work. Track records can be misleading, can be not, but I have found this is by far the biggest predictor of success in an actual kind of role. So yeah. So I actually have also a blog post on that, like called the standard interview, I think, which where I exactly write that how to kind of break these things down.
I also have a rather personal question. What's perhaps the most valuable lesson that you learned in the past year of expansion? Because you had a lot of on your plate, and I think you learned also a lot because there are different stages. And Bolt right now is...
I can't reveal the particular details, but I think the biggest lesson from the last year has been where I didn't push hard enough internally. So there was something which I had high conviction over, and we whatever had a meeting, management meeting, and we decided not to do it for the moment or do something else. And it was a mistake, right? So my mistake was that I didn't kind of push hard enough. But you learn something all the time, right? It's not that you kind of get experience and you never make mistakes. You just hopefully make fewer mistakes, and those mistakes are more creative. But this particular one was a good reminder for me that it's the basics. You need to, if you want to be entrepreneurial, you need courage. You need to stand up for your convictions, and you need to fight for them sometimes, right? And I gave up a bit. That was a particular time where I gave up a bit too easily.
One last question. Carpooling platforms for daily commute like Caros France, Liftshare UK seem to have figured out a good business model around this. How do you think this market will develop?
I don't know whether this is carpooling, because there's two models for carpooling. One is like this Via Van, and the other one is like BlaBlaCar. And the Via Van is the same. They just have a small market, and the other one is the other one is more like, basically it's like replacing intercity buses. Like, so you carpool with somebody when you go long distance, right? So kind of, I guess I could call it short distance, long distance models. Basically, the problem with both of them is that they're both tiny markets. Like both of the, in reality, like if you look at the size of the markets that Bolt deals in, then they're just like very small for the moment. And this is the curse of being a big company also, and a growing company quickly, that like at this point, like if I look at new vertical, I already kind of think like, okay, can I build a 5 billion business there? And if I can't, I'm like, just why bother? Right, and that's a
nice place to be.
Yes, and then Amazon, who has like trillion business, that they're like, they probably look like, can we build like a 300 billion business there? It's only 100 billion. We'll leave it to Bolts of the world. So like that's how the pyramid works. That like the bigger you go, the bigger markets you need to go after, and so that's kind of the problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Jevgeni, for your time, and lots of energy you have to have for the next year. It's a big year for both. Okay, we will meet with the others in the next session, chat session, in a moment. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.